To the Prime Minister now, who's been campaigning in the seat of Lindsay in Sydney. Scott Morrison can't say whether his plan to cut required deposits for first home buyers will push house prices up. The Coalition says the plan isn't a subsidy because the government will just guarantee the extra amount. Let's go live to James O'Doherty with the Prime Minister, and Mr Morrison is spruiking that announcement, understandably, in Western Sydney this morning, James.
In Western Sydney and in the key seat of Lindsay, as we know, the Coalition looking increasingly hopeful to win this battleground seat, looking a bit better in the polls. Lindsay is always a seat that's difficult to predict, sometimes known as a bellwether, one that changes hands and one that sources on both sides say to me is increasingly difficult to work out which way it's going. The Prime Minister here with Melissa McIntosh, his local candidate, spruiking this policy, a new one to cut the required deposit rate for most first home buyers earning less than $125,000. But on the key question, though, of whether this policy would change house prices, Scott Morrison said it would not force house prices down, but couldn't say whether it would push prices up.
I want to see people, when they buy their first home, to be able to stay in the market and keep the value of the home that they've bought. It's difficult to say. It's difficult to say, but I do know this. Labor's housing tax will force the value of your home down.
So questions faced Scott Morrison on whether or not this would lock people out of the market. Scott Morrison said it wouldn't because people would be able to save for a deposit sooner. This comes, Laura Kieran, as the Prime Minister was revealed to have considered a change to negative gearing when he was the Treasurer. This in Freedom of Information documents reported by the ABC this morning that said Scott Morrison was open to looking at negative gearing when he was Treasurer.
We looked at all those issues all those years ago and decided not to do it. That's quite plain. We're not proposing to increase taxes on housing in Australia. The Labor Party is. We've got people all around here, the houses that have been built. Homeowners have come in, worked so hard to get that home. And what Labor going to do? Attack the value of that home.
We know that Labor has already matched this home loan deposits policy. Scott Morrison says they won't be able to deliver it, also pointing out that Labor would slug first homeowners by changing the way that superannuation deposit schemes work. Laura Kieran.
Thank you, James.